Kirsten, welcome to Thriving in Our 40s. I can't tell you how excited I am to have you on the podcast today.
So happy to be here and in my
Well,
40s.
brilliant, exactly, and we're going to thrive. We're going to thrive through this decade and beyond.
That's right.
It's taken a little bit of time for us to get together, but as we just said before, we went on air as such. It's something that I've really wanted to do with you. I've been following your work for a bit on Instagram, and so to have you here now, I feel it's a real honor. For you to share your advice, because we're going to be talking about teenagers, which we can obviously relate to because we've been one. And many people in midlife will have teenagers at home. So I'm looking forward to you sharing your advice and your wisdom.
Honored to be here because, yeah, we were teenagers, and the key is remembering what that's like while being an adult now and knowing how it's
Mm.
also different now. So what's
Absolutely.
the
And
same and what's different?
I was going to say that actually, jumping straight in then, what do you think is one of the biggest difference to being a teenager now to when we were teenagers?
Well, certainly technology, and not that it's bad, it's just we didn't have the same level of it and the same sheer just amount of information and yeah, to decipher, to understand, to look beyond, to and there it's kind of double-sided or two-sided, right? Because in some ways it helps to really strengthen that BS detector teens already have, and then in other teens, or maybe more sensitive teens, because it is such a vulnerable time with what's changing in the brain and the bodies, right, with the boys and girls, it's so vulnerable, and so messages can become really tricky to decipher, especially if a child does not have good, steady, sound guidance from an adult that they trust. And so, so much to unpack there, but that's certainly the biggest, most glaringly obvious change.
Absolutely. And we can do a whole episode on that alone, couldn't we? Just the impact of social media and devices. Let's go back a few steps just to talk about you, if that's okay. If you could
Yes.
just share with us, you are a teen whisperer that you say on your socials. Can you just explain what that term means, a teen whisperer?
Sure. It sort of happened when I was actually working in the private therapy realm, which was a long time ago at this point. But I I had teens that wanted to come back and keep talking, and that was kind of rare, right? A lot of teens are like, I'm good, no thanks, right? They meet another
Yeah.
adult and they just say the same thing that their parent says, and they're in trouble and they're doing something wrong and all of that. And so the way that I've always worked with children, actually, since I was a child myself, has always been really present. And there's nothing else that really matters other than showing up with where someone is right now, because honestly, that feels good, first of all, but also we don't even know where someone is or who someone is if we can't show up right here, right now, agenda free. I mean, other than like, hopefully, they can be themselves and we create safety in a real way. Other than that, it's like, yeah, I'm not trying to get them to get A's or go to college or behave better. I don't really care. I actually just want to know what's going on with them so that I can support them at the highest level.
It's about connecting with them. And when you say being present, what does that mean exactly? Because I hear that term quite often, and I'm like, well, present, does it mean of the physical sense, or does it mean on the emotional level? What does it mean by being present with a teenager?
It's a great question, because I think actually so many of us don't know what that feels like in our
Yeah.
own selves and our own bodies. And this is where any challenge in life, whether it's being 45 and going through perimenopause or being a parent of a teenager, these moments call us into presence with ourselves. And actually everything in life does. And we forget and we remember, we forget and we remember. And for me, it really means I'm in my body, I'm in reality, and my energy is attuning to my surroundings, not in a way where I get lost in it, but in a way that's like, especially with working with a teen or a parent, it's like, I'm here for you and with you. And I'm not asking questions to try to get you to think different or be different. I want to understand you. And even
Mm.
that is it's still gentle, because if they don't want to share anything, that's okay too. And so the presence is this allowing of what is and being okay with. And again, there's maybe, lots of details we could go into depending on the scenario. But yeah, in your body, in your energy, your mannerisms. And a lot of it has to do with just remembering and returning to, because we're going to keep forgetting.
Well, exactly that. And I think what I struggle with, Kirsten, is when children and teenagers, they don't want to talk. So a little bit of background about me: I've got two children, and one is definitely a tween, on the cusp of being a full-blown tween, a teenager. The other one is slightly younger, and I think it is every teenager's rite of passage to not want to talk to their parents. We can give that to them, but there are obviously times when parents want to get involved, they need to get involved. And so, what would be really great to talk to you about today is how we can have those conversations where we're not the nagging white noise in the background, but rather we are people that hopefully they can come to with a little bit of trust. And yes, they're not going to take everything on board, but at least we know as parents we can have conversations that will guide them forward. Let's start talking about some of those topics that parents want to get involved with, and more since the sensitive topics and around relationships and intimacy. How do you have those conversations with teenagers when it comes to sex, consent, relationships, without either parent or young person feeling embarrassed?
Great question. Let's dive in. These are big, big things. I mean, it's all about, and I'll preface this by saying, if you haven't done this perfectly, that's fine. Nobody has.
Few.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and it's about what has happened up until now. What is the relationship
Okay.
like? What's the nature of the relationship with not only yourself as a parent, but also with your teen, right? If we have been skipping some things, right? Skipping our homework, meaning just like our inner work, then we're going to notice that, oh, they're 15. Oh, when I was 15, X, Y, and Z happened. And we're all of a sudden not breathing, not present, stressed out, worried. And we're navigating from that place instead of the place of, I'm noticing something's happening for me here. Oh yeah, at 15, I remember got in that car accident, or the boy broke my heart, or whatever it is. And we have awareness around that, and we can bring more of that presence and intention to the conversations. Because if
Okay.
we're moving from a place where our heart hurts, and it doesn't mean you have to be perfectly healed. Again, we're just healing forever. This is just what we do as humans.
Mm.
So being aware of that, where that hurt is, do what we can to work on that. It's not just our head we have to, support. It's also the heart, because your teen is actually feeling your energy. If you're coming at them with like a full on trying to prevent them from ever having any pain, ever making any mistakes because you had
Yeah.
this whole story, they're going to not want to hear you. And honestly, that's a good thing. We don't want them to be interested in someone else's agenda for them. We don't want them to
It's
like
so
that or
true.
think that's normal, or in a partner, a friend, or whatever, a teacher.
So
It's
it's letting them have that individuality. So if you know that they're 15, and you know that they're dating, or they've got their first crush, or they've even gone through their first heartbreak, what would you recommend in terms of trying to initiate that conversation with them, be it a guy or a girl, or is it actually very different depending on whether they're a guy and a girl?
There's huge differences between girls and boys, especially in the teen years. There's, boys got the testosterone going and they're a more 24-hour sun cycle, whereas girls are 28, day moon cycles, so to speak. We
Yeah.
can even look to nature to show us the differences because they're really important. It doesn't mean there's also not individual differences, but there's a lot that's different between boys and girls. We also know boys are a little bit, I don't want to say behind, but it takes them sometimes a little longer to get to certain developmental milestones, or especially with communication, especially the way we raise boys. And so we also know that boys need to move their bodies a lot more. And in the teen years, it's very feminized in the school system. Sit down and be quiet, which tends to be easier for girls. Again, there's lots of nuance here. I'm very much generalizing, but it's important to think about, who's my kid? What's my relationship like with my kid and myself? Because that's always part of it. Our history, our past. But yeah, what types of conversations have we had? What type of communicator is my kid? What is their life like, their day like? What's their bandwidth? Where's their capacity? Does it even make sense to have this conversation right now? Or am I just doing this because I'm scared and I need to do it fast so that it's over? And so all these things really matter. And I love I'll give some examples of kind of how to do this, but I kind of love this way of looking at natural horizons. So like, what's on the horizon? If you haven't been doing this along the way, having talks about their body and consent along the way, then it is a new conversation. If you've already been doing
Mm.
it, you're still doing it. If it's new, yeah, okay, prom's coming up, or they like a girl, or things like that are already if they are on the way or about to happen or already happening. Work with that because it's real and it's relevant, instead of just like, I'm your parent and I need to do this to check it off the list. Totally different energy. And so some of the ways you can say it, especially if there's any awkwardness, because I don't know if we can like get rid of that, because it is kind of uncomfy even
Yeah,
in the best of
exactly.
relationships,
Yeah,
right? And so
absolutely.
it's a little bit like, this might feel a little bit funny and awkward, and it's still important that we talk about this. It doesn't have to be this exact moment, but we want to make sure we do that before the dance, or before your first date, or before you're 12, or whatever that is that feels right for your family.
It's so reassuring, Kirsten, because you read the books, you talk to other people, you talk to other parents, and they've been having potentially this chat since the word dot kind of thing. And then you feel that you're behind and you almost kind of regurgitate everything you've just learned in the space of 5 minutes. And this poor child's looking at you thinking, what is going on? And so it's reassuring to know that you do it on your and their terms, like you say, what your relationship is, how you see it going forward, and how you think they're going to respond. Because I do chuckle to myself because I had a puberty book that I bought for my children, and my son and my husband were away one weekend, and I was like, this is the perfect opportunity. I'm going to sit down with my daughter. We're going to get all cozy. We're going to look at the book, talk about anything she doesn't understand, and we're going to bond. Because that's what we should be doing supposedly at this stage. Kirsten, I couldn't tell you how disinterested she was. She shut down on me. She was clearly really embarrassed, even though I said, I want to talk about this and if there's anything you don't understand. And in the end, she ended up hiding the book from me. And I haven't brought it up since. And I'm in that weird limbo of being, do I bring it up or do I just wait for her to come to me? What do you think
Let's
what do you think
talk
I should
about it.
do?
I love this. It's so beautiful, and you're not, you're not alone in this, right? Because especially even with the best of intentions of like, this is important and I want to talk about this, they hear like, oh God, and it's going to be awkward, or like, I'm not even close to this, so why does it matter, right? That's where they are. And so there is that reality that it sometimes is in two different worlds. Again, even with the best of relationship, best of dynamics. So um it's always great to be real, where it's like, oh my gosh, last time, okay, so I've been thinking about, that book I got, like, I realized that I had a plan, and like, you were not on board, and it probably is so awkward, and like, um yeah, like really just owning that, right? Being
Perfect.
accountable for
Yeah.
the vibe of how it went down, or maybe even being like, I might have jumped the gun, or like, I know we haven't talked about any of this before, so it probably felt weird. And the other reality is like, giving them some control whenever we can. Most kids are in school all day, don't have a ton of control in their lives. I think this is one of the reasons we see teens trying to take more control, maybe in unsafe or unhealthy ways. And if we can give them age appropriate, safe ways to have some choice and some autonomy, it's so critical in the teen years, because it's prime for mastery, capacity,
I
connection, confidence, all of that.
absolutely agree. I think we're so used to thinking that we're parents, we've got to almost kind of control the situation or protect them, whatever they're doing. And actually, you're right. They need that autonomy. They need that freedom and that self control to push the boundaries or to try something different. I think parents can feel reassured if they know they're going to come back to them if or when there is a problem. And I suppose that kind of leads on quite nicely to what I wanted to talk to you about next is what happens if they've stepped over the line? If they've lied, for example, or you really disapprove of something that they've done,
Mm.
how do you build that connection where you respond in such a way that they still keep coming back to you when they make mistakes going forward?
Yeah, the biggest one is not losing your shit, and if you do, really be accountable for it,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they're going to
God,
learn, wow, my mom freaked out because I was 5 minutes late for curfew. I'm not telling her nothing, right? That's the
okay.
reality. And again, unless you have like a very submissive, people pleasing kid, and that's a whole other conversation, right? We just know that typically teens have a little bit of that counter will or rebellion, or how, we can call it a lot of things, but that's usually there. And it's people pleasing submissive kid is not ideal to send out into the world. So if your kid's pushing a little bit, Congratulations.
Yes.
And let's talk
Own it.
about how to handle it. And so it's
Yeah.
about repair if you end up losing it, right? Obviously it's ideal if we can respond and not react. We've all heard this. What's even better is when we can be proactive and know what's coming
Okay.
and know they might be late and know they might lie, and prepare yourself inside of your heart and your head for that. So instead of like, I'll deal with it when I get there, right? It's like, think about it ahead of time and practice what that looks like, to not take it personal in a way where you self-justify screaming at your kid thinking that, well, if they hadn't done this, then I wouldn't have had to yell at them. It's just not going to work. It doesn't work. So it's really more about, okay, maybe it's not personal. However, we are in a dynamic here, an interpersonal dynamic. And so what here is mine, and what can I do to create the environment, like you said, where my teen wants to keep talking to me or tell me things. So let's even think about curfew, if that's a line for a family, right? This is
Hmm.
maybe a medium one. We can go to deeper ones, but you have to be home by midnight, and they're not. And instead of, usually parents yell because they feel scared and they worry something happened, or they're mad because they feel disrespected. And while I understand it, it's not going to help your relationship to do that. And so a much more balanced middle path approach that still holds love, it's love and limits, it's not one or the other, right, is basically having this conversation before they go out, where you're like, hey, ideally you're home by midnight or whatever the time is, and I realize that life might happen, and it's more important to me that you get home safely
50.
than exactly at midnight or before. That's the most important thing, and that I know where you are, so that if you need anything, I can help you. Not because I want to, like,
Sure.
track you and, like, watch you at a party. And so I think for me, that's one example of ways to really create that, deal with that. If you do yell, apologize, but don't just be apologizing every time you mess up. Change your behaviors too, especially if you're wanting your teen to know that there's a growth mindset that's possible as they step into young adulthood. We actually have to show them that. And so you do lose a lot of control in the teen years, or it becomes more aware that you maybe never had any, and you especially don't now. And that's something also it's important for parents to do the work around, because that's not your teenager's fault to make you feel good or make you feel safe.
E- Exactly. I remember reading the one job that they have actually is to look after themselves. They are young. They're meant to be out there enjoying life. They're not meant to be worrying about what's going on at home. And I suppose that's where you have this conflict between being a parent, knowing that you want to control them, protect them, but also knowing that you were once their age, and you were probably doing things way worse than
That's what
they were
I've
doing.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about my teen years, and I had basically zero rules, and was very much looking after myself. While I did have a
Okay.
roof over my head, I was very rebellious, very strong-willed. I also really loved school because I got that feedback and reflection that I wasn't really getting at home.
Okay.
I do think about the things I did, and it's a miracle that I'm alive. I've had actually a few near-death experiences, and then I've just also had wild things I was engaged with because there was no guidance. And so I think about some of these kids now, and some of them actually would do well with some risky behavior. And I don't
Mm.
mean things that are actually dangerous, but
No.
there are kids actually that they're not even taking the chance to ask a girl out. I mean, a lot of boys feel like scared that that's not even okay to do anymore, which is heartbreaking to me. We can also, if we want to kind of tie in some of the other things we were talking about, one of the questions we can really ask is like, what do you already know about this, and where are you learning about this, whether it's vaping or dating or
Yeah.
all kinds of things, right? Partying at colleges. I mean, I was a teenager in a college town, and I lived right next to frat row. So, I mean, thank goodness I'm here.
It was
And these are
fun.
some of the, it was fun. And like, oh my goodness. It would have been, it actually it would have been great if there was a bit more guidance, because it's not about controlling your teen to the degree that they just do whatever you say. It's helping them understand the information they're taking in, how to make good choices. What is a good choice? What are their values? What is your family's values as a whole, and how to keep them self-safe so they can keep having fun. That is so important. And since they're into fun and friends and freedom, typically, that's one of the ways to get them to kind of realize consequences, or that piece that's not really clicked yet in the teen brain. For some teens, yes, some teens are wiser than their years, older than their years, old souls, all that stuff, but still that prefrontal cortex stuff is real, and we've got to be that part of them that engages them in those ways of thinking without it sounding like lecturing and nagging. So it's like, okay, you want to keep whatever it is. So what are the ways we make sure you get to keep doing that, right? Basically stay
Mhm.
alive.
Yeah. Yeah, stay safe. But it when it comes to friendship, Kirsten, it's there a lot of them are finding their self-identity, they're trying to fit in. And then obviously they're trying to push boundaries. How much do you think parents should get involved when it comes to friendship groups? And I ask this because my daughter's at an all-girls school, and God, we know we're girls, we were girls. Girls are up and down every day, weeks in, weeks out kind of thing. So there's a lot of hormones racing, and my daughter opens up to me sometimes, and other times she doesn't, and I hear about it through other mothers or other girls. So how often should we get involved, or is it a case of actually they've got to find out themselves? They've got to experiment with their friendships. They've got to fall out. They've got to make up. What do you recommend?
Yeah, well, we well, a couple things. One, creating the environment where they want to share with you, because they have to, but because they
Okay.
want to, and they find your presence valuable, your listening valuable, maybe even your wisdom, at some points, maybe. And so, creating that
Yeah.
environment where it's presence over pressure, and and then also recognizing that they're gonna and should really experience fallouts and heartbreak, and hopefully not, extreme things like bullying and whatnot, but we do know that humans learn through struggle, and we learn about ourselves, we learn about what we value. And so, of course there's going to be a line there when it's age appropriate or not, or like how, intense is this or not. And we always want to make sure that the support is matching the trickiness, because if they're just
Yeah.
alone in their trickiness all the time, we know that that's not great. We also know that there are things they're going to have to navigate alone and need to know how to navigate alone. And if they know, I'm going to navigate, I can handle this on my own, and I know I can call my mom and she's going to show up in this way that feels really good, that's super ideal. So then they have a choice.
Okay, fabulous. So I shouldn't be sitting here thinking because my daughter's not confiding in me, I've got anything to worry about. It's just how she handles it.
Yes, is your daughter someone that is more I've got this, like naturally? Is that kind of her personality?
Yeah, she is, and she just says, I didn't want it wasn't important, and she moves on very quickly to the next thing that's happening. And I suppose what I think I struggled with is that I've heard about it, like I said earlier. I hear about things through other mothers or other friends of hers, and I'm thinking, oh, why isn't she telling me? And apparently she was crying, and I didn't know about it. And when I go to her, she's like, yeah, I was a bit upset, but it was okay. Part of me is like, yeah, brilliant, you go, you move on. And then, but also the heartstrings are a bit like, well, I want to know how your day is. And it's that
Yeah, of
fine line
course.
of pushing and making something of something that actually in her head isn't a big deal, or getting her
Right.
to talk about it.
Right. And when they're 4 and 3 and 2, you see them crying you see everything because you're with them, or because there's just no filter, right?
Yes,
And so when they're
exactly.
teenage, it gets a bit more private when they're teenagers. And some teens really feel, I don't know if it's pride or just strong enough or able, or they're growing that muscle to handle things alone. I think one way to kind of touch into it, connect about it is like, I hope that no matter, I hope that you know that it's never an inconvenience. And I always want to know if you want to share. And I might have not always said that perfectly or showed you that perfectly. That is true though. And if there's anything I can ever do, differently, I'm down. Right. And really use language that's real. I think one of the things that really icks teens out, or just like makes it not interesting to talk with their parents, is, and not it's not about being fake, but it's not about being fake either way. You don't want to be fake like I'm trying to be a teenager and use their language, but you also don't want to be fake like I'm a parent and it looks like this, here's my parenting
Yeah,
hat, and here's my checklist. That doesn't work either. So that's
yeah.
what that presence is just like, man, I realize I might have missed the boat here. Oh, I realize we probably didn't talk about this, and you probably don't even want to talk about it with me. And at some point, we got to, or like, I'd love to, depending on what we're talking about. So
And
let
just
me,
being
when's a good time? And also knowing when a good time is. Is it the morning? Is it at night? Is it in the car? Is it never? And if it really is never, then maybe there's something there to repair.
okay. So I was going to ask that. What if they just keep on shutting you down? Because I'm just kind of visualizing if I and I could be completely wrong if I go to my daughter and say, we haven't talked about it, but I'd like to talk about sex or relationships. I can just imagine her being like, oh. So if she doesn't ever say, yeah, let's talk about it, or can we do it tomorrow, or whatever, if she doesn't ever say, let's talk about it, how? And I feel it's my duty to talk about it, though. How do you think I should respond?
Whatever you can do to focus on, for any parent, if there is that big gap, respecting, their how they're growing up, and they're on their way towards 18, and there might be more space and you're not going to know everything, but also, how do I bridge some of these gaps? How do I bring us closer? It doesn't have to be talking about the thing if that's not on the table at the moment. It's doing the maybe smaller things and having time together and being in their world and really acknowledging, because they have all these other pieces and parts. We're thinking, oh my gosh, we have to talk about sex because whatever
It's the
we
right
think is
time.
happening. Exactly.
Mm.
And they're like, I'm just trying to get through math class, and like try to get some sleep. So sometimes,
Yeah.
so it's really kind of panning back and going, what's really even going on here? And then I'd say too, and additionally, if there's not that ability to be the one that talks about this stuff with your kid, which is ideal. I mean, I believe people choose their parents. You choose, there's a whole, cosmic dance here that you're in, this beautiful dynamic that is irreplaceable. And we also know that humans grow really well in a healthy village, and that throughout history, humans and children have needed multiple people caring for them, not just a mom or a dad or both. And so finding those other safe people that share your values and will have your child's, health and safety in mind, but can meet them, like it's an aunt or somebody, or
Yeah.
older cousin, I don't know, someone that it can work with if it's not you, as sort of I don't want to say a last resort, but another option.
I think that's great, though. You're absolutely right. And we shouldn't think as parents we're necessarily failing if they do go to someone else. It's just that it's giving them the option. And I know very much when boys are younger, it is all about the men in their life. And if there isn't that father figure, then it could be, like you say, the cousin, or it could be a teacher. It's finding that person that they relate to. And I know, so I feel like I'm talking about my daughter a lot, but she gets on very well with teachers at school. And so actually that is a comfort. Whilst I'm talking to you, I'm thinking, if there is a problem, she would go to them. And if there's a serious problem, they would then come to me. It all balances itself out.
Yes, having that trust with other people in the community is so key, and making
Definitely.
sure they're a healthy person. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I don't think we can talk about teenagers without bringing in mental health and the big emotions that these young people are going through. And again, these are all individually very, very big topics. And I know I appreciate that each of them kind of deserve a lot more time that we're giving them. But when it comes to mental health, it's obviously has such a major impact on the teenage years. We mentioned earlier about devices and how everything's become a lot more insular. And although people think they're more connected, they're not. They're not connecting, obviously, in real life. So if you notice that your teen is suffering from mental health, how do you work to talk about that if they're shutting down, or you feel that they are got low self-esteem, or they're suffering from anxiety? What would you recommend in those instances?
My hope for the world is we can start to look at mental health as beyond the brain, instead of it being just what we think, right? It's also connected to how we move, how we love, how we're eating, how much sunshine we get, if we're being forced to learn about nonsense all day, right? There's kids right now that know that school is a bunch of baloney and it's a waste of freaking time, and they're over it. And that's going to make someone not feel well in a lot
Yeah.
of different ways. And so my
Yeah.
wish, this is one of the things I really found frustrating about being in this, you know, study in school forever and then being in sort of that mental health system. It really missed so many pieces. So I think we have a serious issue that's like mental health and beyond, and how all these things are interconnected, and bringing this perspective of, where does this person shine already? Who is this person? What are they
Hmm.
already amazing at? What's their gift here? And how do we honor that? And also, it doesn't mean to say we're not talking about what's hard. It's not about skipping over it. It's actually like, we got to look at the whole picture here, because what's creating this response from this child, because it might be a natural response to a very unnatural or unhealthy environment that's full of fear or division, or I mean, online, right? Echo chambers and all this stuff. So we've got to really kind of go, instead of just there's a problem and there's a mental health issue with my kid. It's like, well, perhaps, and also, what's the whole picture here?
It's
What
like,
if they
yes,
just,
panning out,
yeah, yeah,
looking
exactly.
in. And I suppose finding those nuggets of joy that child might have, and then building on that. And like you said, you touched on about the education system. My gosh, it is so archaic, and so many children, young people suffer through those first years.
Their whole
A lot,
childhood, their whole
yeah,
childhood.
yeah, absolutely. And so it's you hope that the education system is going to change, but actually it falls to what we can do outside of that. What can we bring into their life that is going to spark that joy, that interest, that laughter? And that, like you said, will have such an impact on what we now just give the general term of mental health.
Yeah, let's look at an average teen's life just to really paint the picture. They're sleep deprived. They're getting 5 to 6 to 7 hours of sleep, maybe. They need 8 to 11 if they're a teenager. 8 is minimum. They are on screens all day. They are learning information that is boring and irrelevant and sometimes not even accurate, because it just the old systems that are big, they just can't keep up. It's the same with all the systems. This isn't like picking on schools. It's just a reality. We have to be aware of what the reality is we're living in if we
Yeah.
want to get anywhere with raising capable, amazing young people. And so what else is happening? They're not getting any sunshine or not much. They're not moving their bodies. They're corralled with people only their age. They're
Hmm.
not able to deep dive into magic. They have to stop when the bell rings. They're doing homework. Their parents are on them about homework. Everything's about doing the thing and performing. And this is childhood we're talking about. And the reality is the needs of childhood are completely different than anything I just said. It's about feeling supported, experimenting, playing, getting good sleep, being in nature, following the thing you're into. I mean, this is Montessori and Waldorf and all of that. And it means that without that proper childhood and those and seeing the world as like magical and beautiful and supporting of me and I'm here to bring my gift, if we don't have that, how are we going to have healthy adults if we haven't even had healthy children? We're really, I don't know how it is in the UK, but it's a disaster here. We've got more issues than we've ever had before when the children are sicker than ever. And we also are living in a time when it's like the most amazing opportunities and more choices are kind of blooming and happening. And, it's very interesting just to see the massive polar opposites going on and also this still clinging to the old way of doing something. And I think there's a way to go to the old ancient ways that are true and bring it into the modern world instead of just the thing that's been around for a couple hundred years and is absolutely failing basically almost everybody to some degree.
I
Even if you
mean,
have a type A kid who loves school, I mean, it, it's not as valuable as it once was.
and so what you mean by that, Kirsten, is taking that kind of the pressure, the education, the grade expectation out of it, and giving them more joy, giving them a bit more freedom.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I wouldn't care at all about my kids' grades. There's plenty of kids that are so smart that don't do well in school and they're just going to get the C to get by. And it doesn't mean anything. Even
Yeah.
if they don't get into the school they want to because they want to be like, I don't know, whatever, an architect or something, there'll be other schools, internships, mentors, opportunities. We're not lacking in that. What we're lacking in is actually just being present with what is right now and what truly, truly matters. I've never heard anyone at the end of their life say, I wish I got on my kid more about their grades. I wish I got straight A's, because it just actually doesn't matter. And we also know we need more tradespeople. We need people that are actually whole humans that are following their
Hmm.
gifts and bringing that to the world, because that's actually those are the things that are actually going to help us with the issues that are here that we do need to work together on. It's not the kid who just does the easy thing to get the A to get into the school. That's not actual learning.
Maybe this is a
That's right.
really good way to finish up.
That's
What
okay.
advice would you give then if we could give our children, our teenagers, the best opportunity from now going forward? What would be the tools that you say that parents should be doing in this day and age?
Okay, so there's a few things, right? Depending on who your kid is. What are they into? How can I meet them in their world and understand their world instead of trying to make them the straight A student or care about something that they don't care about? That is a uphill losing battle and it will destroy your relationship. And as long as it's safe, right, and healthy, then there's no problem. And supporting them and working towards whatever that is. So for some kids, it's like, I want to know how to build a business and make a bunch of money because I can see the writing on the wall and I'm going to need to know how to do this, right? I don't need to learn to, this trigonometry. I need to learn how to trade, or I need to learn how to run a business. And I'm not going to learn that from a teacher who's never run a business, right? So understanding that, instead of being like, well, you just have to do it, like, you will lose all their trust. And so who are they? What are they wanting? And they might not know. And so it's like, that's okay. You don't have to know yet. You are still a kid. And I'm here to like see what presents itself. Let's watch for the synchronicities of life and the people that, call us or knock on our door, or the thing that pops up, an ad stapled to a tree or whatever. Let's just like notice these things, because the reality is this earth is really tricky and really hard, and it's also really magical. And so many kids and people right now feel like there's no point, and disconnected, and even like, can feel even disillusioned or even delusional, right, at times. But being in reality, seeing both the darkness of it and the magic and the light of it is so key. And following that inner compass of what it is they actually want, who they actually are, before anyone told them something else, because this is the natural diversity that is here already. We don't have to manufacture it.
And taking out your own expectations as well of what you think the child should be doing or the direction they should be going in. And really going back to what we said, giving them some autonomy and let them have their own voice to turn around and say, Mom, Dad, this is how I see things going, and working with that.
Exactly. Again, as long as it's safe and healthy, right? And because uh, kids still need parents, and to have those like bumpers, right? And also, yeah, am I expecting my kid to be a straight A kid that wants to go to college, or am I seeing who they really are? Am I supporting that? Because, and we also know, I mean, it's that magical quote, I love it, where it's like, your kid's great at tennis and bad at math. Most kids get a math coach, but I would get a tennis coach. Focus on where they're already magic and striving and excited and want to excel. And we grow best from there. It's just true. And that's good for your relationship. That's good for their, all the types of, I mean, we could say mental health, physical health, all the things. So your relationship,
Yeah,
that, and their belief in themselves, and building those real skills. Because even if they suck at the thing they really love, it's like they can get good at it. We know that that's possible. And we also know teens will go for it when they care about it. They will not if they don't. And that's just human.
absolutely. Or I can say that from, I think with so many of us can say that from our own experience. My daughter would happily dance from dawn till dusk, but you put any kind of writing in front of her, she will find any excuse not to do it. So it's so true.
That's right. That's right.
Um, Kirsten, you've been amazing. I'm going to finish up. You've got so much to give, but I want people to be able to reach out to you and find out more about what you do and the work that you cover. So could you just let us know if people wanted to get in touch with you or find out more about you, how can they do that?
Yes, they can visit parentingwave.com if they want to check out the group that I run. And I'm live every week with parents, and we go into all the things. That platform is private and has all kinds of resources on it. And people can also find me at Kirsten Cobabe everywhere.
Fabulous. You've been amazing. I could genuinely sit here and talk to you for hours more, and just trying to absorb all the advice that you're giving. But thank you so much for giving up your time today, away the other side of the world. But it's been so lovely that we've been able to connect and have this conversation.
Same. And thank you, and to all the other amazing parents that are, paying attention and raising kids today. It's the most important work, and I'm in awe, and thank you for having me.